The research station Gentle Dawn was dying. Its beautiful crystal walls were cracked and broken. Air was escaping into the cold darkness of space. Emergency lights flashed red across every corridor, and the sound of alarms filled the halls like screaming. Ambassador stood in the command center with shaking hands. He was a tall and thin creature whose body glowed with soft blue light. His people were known across the galaxy for their intelligence and peaceful ways. They had never needed to fight. They had never needed to be strong. The coalition of allied species had always protected them. But the coalition was not here now. Through the cracked windows, could see the Dominion raider ships circling the station like hungry predators. There were 12 of them, black and ugly vessels covered in weapons. The Dominion were slavers and killers. They attacked the weak and took prisoners to sell in the dark markets of the Outer Rim, and right now, they were cutting through the station's defenses like a knife through soft fruit. Ambassador, called out a young technician named. His blue glow was flickering with fear. They have breached the outer sections. Our security teams are falling back. Closed his eyes. The security officers were not soldiers. They carried ceremonial weapons and wore decorative armor. They had never faced real combat in their lives. Against the Dominion shock troops, massive insect-like warriors in heavy battle armor, they stood no chance at all. "How many have we lost?" asked quietly. 47 confirmed dead, more than 100 missing. His voice cracked. "Ambassador, there are families on this station, children, scientists who came here to study the nebula. They did not come here to die." Knew this. He had approved many of their research permits himself. He remembered the young mother named who had brought her infant daughter to study stellar radiation. He remembered the elderly professor who wanted to map the gas clouds before he retired. He remembered all of them, and the weight of their lives pressed down on his shoulders like a mountain. "Have we received any response to our distress calls?" asked. "Nothing, Ambassador. The nearest coalition fleet is engaged at the border. They say they cannot send ships for at least 5 days. 5 days? They would all be dead or enslaved in 5 hours. Move to the emergency beacon controls." The machine was old but still working. It could send a message across vast distances of space, reaching anyone who was listening on the emergency frequencies. "I am going to send another call for help," said. "On all channels, someone must hear us." What did not know was that the emergency frequencies had been updated recently. The old channel, the one programmed into the Gentle Dawn's ancient systems, now belonged to a different species entirely. A species that the Coalition had locked away 40 years ago. A species they called the greatest threat to galactic peace. Humanity. 600 light-years away, in a solar system surrounded by warning beacons and quarantine buoys, a young woman named sat at her communication station. She served aboard the Earth Orbital Defense Station Hammer of Dawn, a massive military installation that floated in the shadow of the moon. Was not tall, but she was strong in the way that all humans were strong. She had grown up on Earth, a planet where the gravity crushed bones and the weather could kill in minutes. She had survived the Mars uprising and the Belt Wars. She had seen friends die and enemies fall. She was 32 years old, and she had already lived through more violence than most species experienced in 10 generations. Her console beeped, an incoming signal. Frowned and pulled up the data. It was a distress call, alien in origin, using an old frequency that nobody had used in years. She ran the translation software and watched as the words appeared on her screen. "This is Station Gentle Dawn. We are under attack by Dominion raiders, requesting immediate assistance. All Allied vessels, please respond." Read the message twice. Then she turned to face her commanding officer, a broad man named who stood before the tactical display with his arms crossed. "Commander," she called out, "we have an SOS, alien origin. They are asking for help." Turned slowly. His face was weathered from years of service, and his eyes were hard but not cruel. "What species?" Sir. A strange expression crossed face. Everyone on the bridge knew that name. They had been the loudest voices calling for humanity's quarantine. They had called humans primitive gravity-bound savages at the Andromeda Summit. They had argued that Earth was too hostile to produce civilized beings, that humans were dangerous animals who should never be allowed into galactic society. Because of species like humanity had spent 40 years locked in their own solar system. They could not trade with other worlds. They could not explore the stars. They could not meet other species or share their culture or learn new things. They were prisoners in their own home, treated like monsters in a cage. The ones who hate us, said quietly, the ones who fear us. Yes, sir. The bridge was silent. Everyone waited to see what the commander would decide. Was quiet for a long time. He looked at the message on the screen, at the desperate words from a species that despised his people. He thought about the years of insults and isolation. He thought about the friends he had lost in the quarantine riots, the children who had grown up never knowing what lay beyond their solar system. Then he thought about the people on that station, the scientists, the families, the children who had done nothing wrong except be born on the wrong side of galactic politics. How far? He asked. 3 days at maximum speed, replied. What is attacking them? Dominion raiders, at least 12 ships. Nodded slowly. Then he pressed the button for the fleet-wide channel. His voice echoed across every human vessel in the solar system. All ships, this is Commander. We have received a distress call from a coalition species under attack. I know what they have done to us. I know what they think of us, but we are not them. We do not leave people to die because of politics. Prepare for immediate departure, full combat configuration. He released the button and turned to face his crew. The ride to war. The Terran Third Fleet gathered in the shadow of Jupiter. The great red storm of the gas giant swirled behind them as 17 warships formed into battle formation. These were not pretty vessels. They were not elegant or graceful like coalition ships. They were ugly things of blackened steel and heavy armor, covered in weapons and from 100 battles. Humanity had built these ships to survive. They had built them the same way they built everything, with the hard lessons of their death world burned into every design choice. Thick hulls to withstand punishment. Redundant systems so that damage would not cripple them. Weapons that hit hard and fast because on Earth, the creature that struck first usually lived. Admiral stood on the bridge of the dreadnought Unconquered Sun and studied the tactical displays. She was a small woman, barely reaching the shoulders of most of her crew, but her presence filled the room like a cold wind. Her officers called her the Ice Widow behind her back. Her enemies called her nothing at all, because she never left survivors to speak. Report, she said, her voice calm and flat. Her tactical officer was a young man named. He had served under the Admiral for 3 years and still felt nervous every time she looked at him. We have confirmation of the enemy force, Admiral. 12 Dominion raider vessels, standard slaver configuration, fast ships with light weapons designed for hit-and-run attacks. And the station. Research outpost, approximately 400 civilians, scientists and their families mostly, no significant defenses. Nodded slowly, 400 lives, 400 people who would be dead or worse if nobody came to help them. The coalition certainly was not coming. The coalition was too busy with their border disputes and their political arguments. They had forgotten what it meant to protect the innocent. Navigation, called out. Plot an intercept course. We will approach at maximum speed and maintain radio silence until we reach the engagement zone. The navigation officer, a woman named, entered the coordinates with practiced efficiency. Course plotted, Admiral. 3 days to arrival. Shifted uncomfortably. Admiral, if I may speak freely. You may. The coalition has standing orders to fire on any human vessel that enters their space. We have been quarantined for 40 years. If we cross the boundary, they might attack us before they realize we are there to help. Turned to face him. Her eyes were dark and deep, like pools of still water that hid something dangerous beneath the surface. Lieutenant, I have commanded warships for longer than you have been alive. I have fought pirates in the asteroid belt. I have crushed rebellions on Mars. I have destroyed rogue artificial intelligences that threaten to wipe out human colonies. I am not concerned about the Coalition's response. She turned back to where the stars waited like scattered diamonds against black velvet. We will save those people, and if the Coalition objects, they can file a complaint with someone who cares. The fleet slipped into hyperspace. Reality twisted and bent around them as they punched through the fabric of space itself. 17 ships carrying thousands of humans, all of them volunteers, all of them knowing they were flying into hostile territory to save people who hated them. In the crew quarters of the cruiser Iron Promise, a young Marine named was checking his weapons for the 10th time. He was 24 years old and had never seen real combat. The Belt Wars had ended before he finished training, but he had heard the stories from the veterans. He knew what the Dominion did to their prisoners. "You nervous?" asked a woman named who sat across from him cleaning her rifle. "No," lied. Laughed. It was not a cruel laugh, just the sound of someone who knew better. First combat drop is always scary. The trick is to be more angry than afraid. Angry at what? Angry at the bastards who make us necessary. Slammed a fresh magazine into her weapon. Angry at slavers who prey on civilians. Angry at a galaxy that locked us up because they were scared of us. She looked at him with hard eyes. Use that anger. Let it burn away the fear. We are going to save those people, rookie. And anyone who tries to stop us is going to learn why the galaxy was right to be scared. Nodded slowly, he understood. Humans were not the largest species in the galaxy. They were not the oldest or the most advanced, but they were survivors. They came from a planet that had tried to kill them every single day for millions of years. Ice ages, volcanic eruptions, asteroid impacts, predators with teeth and claws, diseases that wiped out entire populations. And through all of it, humans had refused to die. That stubbornness was built into their bones. That refusal to give up was written in their blood. When a human decided to do something, they did it, no matter the cost, no matter the odds. The Dominion had no idea what was coming for them. On the bridge of the unconquered sun, Admiral watched the hyperspace tunnel flow past In her mind, she was already planning the battle. The Dominion raiders were fast but fragile. They relied on speed and surprise, hitting soft targets and running before help could arrive. They had never faced human warships before. They had no idea how hard humanity could hit, how fast human ships could move, how determined human soldiers could be. "Admiral," said from the navigation station, "we will arrive at the target zone in 71 hours. "Good, all crews will use this time to rest and prepare. I want every weapon checked, every system tested, every Marine ready for combat." His voice was cold but steady. "When we arrive, we will have no time for mistakes. The Dominion will not expect us. That surprise is our greatest weapon." She turned to face her bridge crew, these men and women who had followed her into danger a dozen times before. They looked back at her with trust in their eyes. They believed in her. They believed in the mission. "We are going to save those people," said quietly. "We are going to show the galaxy what humanity truly is. Not monsters, not savages, just people who refuse to look away when innocents are suffering." She paused. "That is worth fighting for. That is worth dying for." The crew nodded. No one spoke. No one needed to. The fleet continued through hyperspace. 17 daggers of human determination cutting through the void toward a battle that would change everything. The gentle dawn was falling apart. 3 days had passed since the attack began, and the station was barely holding together. Entire sections had been cut off, their corridors filled with vacuum or fire. The Dominion troops had pushed deep into the heart of the facility, killing anyone who resisted and capturing those who surrendered. Ambassador had gathered the survivors in the central command hub. There were perhaps 200 of them now, huddled together in the dim emergency lighting. Scientists who had come to study the stars, technicians who maintained the station systems, families who had simply been in the wrong place at the wrong time. Among them was the young researcher who had brought her infant daughter to the station. She held the child close to her chest, trying to keep her quiet, trying to hide the fear that made her whole body shake. Her daughter was only 6 months old. She had never even seen there, and now she might never get the chance. "Why has no one come?" asked, her voice barely a whisper. "We sent the distress signal. The coalition promised to protect us. Where are they?" Had no answer. He had sent message after message, but the coalition fleet was too far away. They were fighting their own battles on the other side of the galaxy. The Gentle Dawn and everyone aboard had been written off as acceptable losses. The sound of weapons fire echoed through the walls. The Dominion were getting closer. Their shock troops, those terrible insect warriors in their black armor, were cutting through the last of the station's defenders. Soon they would reach the command hub. Soon they would take everyone here as slaves or simply kill them for sport. "Ambassador," shouted from his console. "Hyperspace signatures, multiple contacts incoming." Hope flared in his chest like a sudden flame. "The coalition, how many ships?" His blue glow flickered as he studied the readings. His face twisted with confusion, then something else, something that looked very much like terror. 17 vessels, Ambassador, but they are not coalition ships. These drive signatures are. They are Terran, human. The room went silent. Everyone knew that word. Human. The monsters from the death world. The savage creatures who lived on a planet of poison and violence. The species that the coalition had locked away because they were too dangerous to exist among civilized beings. "They have come to finish us," moaned an elderly scientist near the back of the room. "The Dominion must have called them. They are working together." "We are dead," someone else wailed. "Dead or worse. The humans will eat us. They will tear us apart. Everyone knows what they are." Felt his heart's pounding in his chest. Everything he had ever heard about humans flashed through his mind. Their crushing gravity world, their history of constant warfare, their predator eyes and their carnivore teeth. He had voted for the quarantine himself, had argued that humanity must never be allowed to spread among the stars. And now 17 of their warships were dropping out of hyperspace directly above his station. But something strange was happening. The human ships were not approaching the Gentle Dawn. They were heading directly toward the Dominion raiders instead. "Ambassador," said slowly, his voice thick with disbelief. "The humans they are attacking the Dominion." Through the cracked windows of the command hub, watched as fire bloomed in the darkness of space. A Dominion corvette exploded into a cloud of debris. Then another. The human ships were tearing through the raider formation like predators through a herd of prey animals. "They came to help us," whispered, clutching her daughter. "The monsters came to help us." On the bridge of the unconquered sun, Admiral observed the battle with cold satisfaction. The Dominion raiders had been caught completely by surprise. They were scrambling to form a defensive formation, but it was already too late. Human punched through their weak shields like they were made of paper. Human missiles tracked their evasive maneuvers and blasted them into scattered wreckage. "Target the lead vessels first," ordered. "Do not let them organize, keep them running." Commander stood beside her, watching the destruction with grim approval. "They never expected us. They thought they were safe out here, preying on defenseless civilians. They thought wrong." A Dominion destroyer tried to break away from the battle, its engines flaring as it attempted to escape. The cruiser Iron Promise adjusted course to intercept, its weapons already charging. The destroyer made it perhaps 30 seconds before a volley of rounds tore it in half. "Marine teams are ready for boarding operations," reported from his station. 3 enemy vessels are disabled but intact." "Send them in," said. "Take prisoners if possible. I want to know where these slavers came from and how many more of them are out there." On the disabled Dominion frigate Cruel Fortune, Marine felt his heart pounding as his boarding pod punched through the enemy hull. The metal screamed as the pod's cutting torch carved an opening, and then he was through, his boots hitting the deck of an alien ship for the first time in his life. The Dominion troops were waiting for them, massive warriors in heavy armor, their compound eyes gleaming with hatred, but they had never faced human Marines before. They did not know about the powered armor that enhanced human strength tenfold. They did not know about the weapons that could punch through starship hulls. They did not know about the training that made every human soldier a killing machine. The battle lasted 4 minutes. When it was over, stood among the fallen Dominion troops, his armor splattered with alien blood. His slapped him on the shoulder. "Not bad for a rookie," she said. "You did good." Nodded slowly, his breath still coming fast. He looked around at the carnage they had created, at the broken bodies of beings who had come here to enslave innocents. "Is it always like this?" he asked. "Sometimes worse." Started walking toward the bridge of the captured ship. "But that is why we train, that is why we fight, so that people like those down on that station do not have to." Followed her, stepping over the fallen enemies without looking back. He understood now what the veterans had tried to tell him. War was not glorious. It was ugly and brutal and terrible, but sometimes it was necessary. Sometimes the only way to protect the innocent was to become the thing that monsters feared. And humanity had spent millions of years becoming exactly that. Commander of the Dominion had been a slaver for 30 years. He had raided 100 worlds. He had captured thousands of prisoners and sold them to the highest bidder in the dark markets of the Outer Rim. He feared nothing in the galaxy. That changed in the span of 30 seconds. His first warning was the complete destruction of his flanking corvette. One moment the ship was there, weapons charging, ready to continue the assault on the station. The next moment it was an expanding cloud of debris and fire. No warning. No chance to react, just instant annihilation. "What was that?" demanded, his mandibles clicking with sudden fear. Before anyone could answer, something slammed into his flagship with the force of a small moon. The entire ship shuddered and groaned. Alarms screamed across every console. A damage report appeared on his screen and felt his blood run cold. A kinetic projectile had punched straight through his forward shields. It had continued through 3 decks of his ship, killing everything in its path, before finally stopping somewhere in the engine section. His entire propulsion crew was dead. His ship was crippled. "Enemy contacts," screamed his sensor officer. 17 vessels, unknown configuration. They are firing again." Watched in horror as another of his ships exploded. Then another. The enemy vessels were moving through his formation like predators through a school of fish. They were faster than any ships he had ever seen. Their weapons were devastating. Their shields seemed to shrug off everything his raiders could throw at them. "What are they?" he demanded. "Who are they?" His tactical officer was trembling so badly that his antennae were shaking. "Sir, these drive signatures, these weapon profiles. According to our databases, these are Terran vessels, human vessels." The word hit like a physical blow. Human. Everyone in the Dominion knew that word. The quarantined species. The death. The creatures that the Coalition had locked away because they were too dangerous to be allowed among the stars. For 40 years, humanity had been contained in their own solar system. Had heard the stories, of course. Everyone had. A species evolved on a planet of crushing gravity and extreme temperatures. A species that had survived ice ages and asteroid impacts and predators with teeth longer than a Dominion warrior's arm. A species that had spent millions of years killing everything around them, including each other. The Coalition had been right to fear them, understood that now. "All ships retreat," he ordered. "Fall back to the nebula, we need to escape." But his ships were dying too fast. The humans were not giving them time to run. Every time a Dominion vessel tried to break away, a human warship would intercept it. Their targeting was impossibly precise. Their weapons were impossibly powerful. They fought like they had been born for this, like violence was as natural to them as breathing. On the bridge of the unconquered sun, Admiral watched the slaughter with the cold eyes of a predator who had cornered its prey. "The enemy flagship is attempting to flee," reported officer from her station on the cruiser Hammer of Dawn. "Its engines are damaged but still functional." "Pursuit course ordered, all weapons free." The unconquered sun turned toward the fleeing Dominion flagship like a shark following the scent of blood. Its mane charged with a sound like thunder building in the heart of a storm. The targeting computer locked onto the enemy vessel and calculated the perfect firing solution. Commander had 3 seconds to see his death coming. 3 seconds to understand that everything he had heard about humans was true. They were monsters. They were killers. They were the most dangerous things in the galaxy. But they were not evil. They were simply very, very good at destroying evil. The volley hit the Dominion flagship with enough force to crack a small moon. The ship did not explode so much as it simply ceased to exist. One moment it was there, and the next moment there was nothing but scattered atoms and fatting radiation. The battle had lasted 11 minutes from start to finish. When it was over, the Terran Third Fleet held position above the gentle dawn. 17 human warships surrounded the damaged station, their weapons still hot, their sensors still scanning for threats. But there were no more threats. The Dominion Raider fleet had been completely destroyed. "All enemy vessels neutralized," reported, his voice carrying a note of grim satisfaction. "We have taken 37 prisoners from the boarding operations. No human casualties." Nodded slowly. No human casualties. Her people had fought a battle against 12 enemy warships and not lost a single life. That was what 40 years of preparation looked like. That was what happened when you trained for war every single day because you knew the galaxy wanted you dead. "Begin rescue operations," she ordered. "I want medical teams on that station within the hour. Anyone who needs help, we help. Anyone who needs food, we feed. Anyone who needs protection, we protect." Admiral said carefully, "They may not welcome our presence. They hate us. They fear us." "I know," turned to face him, and there was something almost sad in her dark eyes. "But we did not come here for their gratitude, Commander. We came here because it was right. What they think of us afterward is their choice." She looked out at the stars, at the scattered wreckage of the Dominion fleet, at the fragile station full of people who had spent their whole lives being taught that humans were monsters. "Send a message to the station," she said quietly. "Tell them that the fighting is over. Tell them that they are safe now. Tell them that humanity came when they called." The message was sent. And aboard the gentle dawn, 400 watched the human warships take up protective positions around their station, and began to wonder if everything they had been taught was wrong. Ambassador stood before the communication console, his hands trembling. Outside the windows, human warships hung in space like guardian spirits. Their weapons were silent now, but the wreckage of the Dominion fleet still floated in the void, a reminder of what those weapons could do. A communication request appeared on the screen. The source was the human flagship, the unconquered sun. Hesitated. Every instinct in his body told him to refuse, to hide, to pretend the humans were not there. But they had saved his people. They had destroyed the Dominion raiders without being asked, without demanding payment, without even knowing if they would thank them or shoot at them. He accepted the call. The human who appeared on the screen was not what it expected. She was small, much smaller than he had imagined. Her skin was a warm brown color, and her dark hair was tied back in a simple style. But her eyes were what caught his attention. They were dark and deep, filled with an intelligence that seemed to see right through him. "This is Admiral of the Terran Navy," she said. Her voice was translated through the universal protocol but could hear the real sound underneath. It was softer than he had expected, calmer. "We received your distress signal. Is everyone safe?" Struggled to find words. His whole life, he had been taught that humans were savage beasts, monsters from a nightmare world, creatures too dangerous to exist among civilized species. And yet here was one of them, asking about the safety of people who had helped imprison her entire species for 40 years. "Yes," he finally managed. "Yes, we are safe because of you." He paused, trying to understand. "Why did you come? After everything the Coalition has done to your people, after everything we have done." Was silent for a moment. When she spoke again, her voice was soft but carried a weight that made feel very small. "Ambassador, we came because you asked for help. That is all. That is the only reason we ever need." Behind stepped forward. Her infant daughter was sleeping peacefully in her arms for the first time in days. "But the quarantine," said. "We locked you away. We called you savages and monsters. We said you were too dangerous to exist among us." "You did," nodded slowly. "And perhaps you were right in a way. We evolved on a world that kills the weak. We survived ice ages that lasted thousands of years. We survived predators that made your nightmares look friendly. We survived diseases that wiped out half our population. We survived each other." She paused. "We are strong because we had to be strong. We are violent because violence was the only language our planet understood." She leaned forward slightly and saw something in her eyes that he had never expected to see in a human: compassion. "But we also learned something else on our death world," continued. "We learned that survival means nothing if you abandon others to die. We learned that the strongest hand should lift up the fallen, not crush them. We learned that being dangerous is not the same as being evil." The connection between them hummed with silence. Felt tears forming in his eyes, glowing blue as they traced down his face. "What do you want from us?" he asked. "Payment, alliance, gratitude?" Smiled. It was a small expression, tired and sad and somehow beautiful. "We want nothing, Ambassador. We came because it was right. What you do with that knowledge is your own choice." The transmission ended. Over the following weeks, the story of the Gentle Dawn spread across Coalition space like fire through dry grass. They told everyone they knew. They sent recordings of the battle. They shared their experiences with the human rescue teams, who had treated their wounded and fed their hungry and asked for nothing in return. Ambassador returned to the Coalition Senate and demanded a hearing. For 6 hours, he stood before the assembled representatives of 1,000 species and told them what had happened. He told them about the Dominion attack. He told them about the distress call that no one answered. He told them about the 17 human warships that had crossed half the galaxy to save people who hated them. "They could have ignored us," said, his voice echoing through the great chamber. "They could have let us die. We certainly deserved it after everything we have done to them, but they did not. They came, they fought, they bled for us." He looked around at the faces of the senators. Some were angry, some were afraid, some looked like they were seeing the world clearly for the first time. "For 40 years we have told ourselves that humans are monsters," said. "We locked them away because we were afraid of what they might do, but they have shown us what they truly are. They are protectors. They are warriors who fight for the innocent. They are everything we claimed they could never be." He paused, and when he spoke again, his voice was barely above a whisper. "If these are monsters, then what does that make us?" The vote to end the quarantine protocols passed 3 days later. When the news reached Earth, Admiral was standing on a beach watching the sunset paint the ocean in shades of gold and red. Her communication device buzzed with the message, and she read it twice before allowing herself to smile. Commander found her there an hour later. "Admiral, the crews are celebrating. The Chancellor wants to give you a medal." "I did not do it for medals." "I know, that is why you deserve one." Turned to face him. Her eyes were still dark and deep, but something had softened in them, something that looked like hope. "We showed them who we really are," she said quietly. "That is all I ever wanted." "And who are we, Admiral, really?" Looked back at the sea. Behind her, the sun was setting on the planet that had made humanity what they were, a world of beauty and violence, a world of life and death, a world that had forged a species strong enough to survive anything and kind enough to save those who had tried to destroy them. "We are the children of a death world," she said softly. "We are strong because we had to be, dangerous because danger was our cradle, but we are also kind because we know what it means to suffer. We know what it means to be alone and afraid and desperate." She turned to Meet's eyes, and there were tears on her cheeks. "We are humanity, and today the galaxy finally learned what that means." Above them, the stars were coming out, thousands of points of light against the darkening sky, each one a sun with worlds of its own, each one now open to the children of Earth. The SOS had been meant for allies. It had summoned something far greater. It had summoned hope.